Boy, some of y'all have been waiting for this one, and some of you are probably looking at me like, Coley, what the f*** are you going to explain to me this time? And to that I say, hey man, the door is right there. If you want to leave, there's still time, but just know that if you continue on from this point, you've consented to having your fandom brain rot expanded. Seriously though, this is a bit of a funky fandom topic, so if you're genuinely not comfortable with it, then head out of here and have a good day, okay? Selfcest, self-love, self-care. Selfcest is pretty much what it sounds like. It's shipping a character with, well, themselves. Whether it's their clone or a different version of themselves from a different universe or time. There's tons of examples of characters meeting themselves in various pieces of media out there, some of which we'll dig into and explore, but outside of a few notable examples, it's really in the fandom world that selfcest as a romantic shipping mechanism truly takes hold. There's also been a fair amount of debate over self-cest over the years. The cest makes people think of incest, of course, and so the question of, hey, is self-cest incest actually, is thrown around a lot. Personally, I think the term doppelbanger is a lot more fun and does a better job of encapsulating the concept as a whole, but I digress. At the end of the day, it's pretty much the entirety of the would you f*** your clone debate, only with your favorite fictional characters. I don't want to f*** my clone because that would be gay sex, and I'm not gay. I'm not gay, but I would actually totally f*** my clone. I'm gay, but I still don't want to f*** my clone. That's gross and weird. I don't want to f*** my clone because my self-loathing is that strong. I'd totally f*** my clone because I want to know if I'm good in bed. I'd f*** my clone because who would know better how to f*** me than me? I'd totally do all the sort of weird things to my clone I'd be embarrassed to ask someone else to do. To be honest, f***ing my clone has always been my fantasy. It's basically the same as masturbating, right? So no big deal. It's not the same as masturbating. It'd be like having sex with your twin, wrong and bad. I would not have sex with my clone because what if my clone is evil? Not only would I have sex with my clone, I'd probably make a bunch of clones and just get it on with all of them at once because that's how pro-clone f***ing I am. No. So how does self-cest work exactly? Well, it depends on the media. Like I said before, it could be because of timey-wimey f***ery that happens canonically in that story's universe, like maybe there's a rip in space-time that alternate selves are pouring in from. In this case, the alternate versions of the same character could be more or less the same, with maybe like slight differences, or they could be so different that they're almost different characters entirely. Or if there's not a rip in space-time, maybe somebody gets a hold of a time machine and gets sent 10 years in the past or 10 years in the future, and so you have two of the same character in a living room, only one is slightly older or slightly younger. Who are you? I'm you, but from the year 2029. Oh, when did I get hot? You had a bad breakup that made you reevaluate your life and triggered a glow up. You mean I actually dated someone? Still can. Oh my god, I hope this doesn't cause a time paradox or something. Wait, are you the one I had a bad breakup with? Is this what makes me get my act together? If clones are a thing in a story's universe, then there you go, two of the same character twice, or thrice, or 12 times. And then, sometimes for other pieces of media, other stories, the self-cest is entirely a fandom invention. Going through some popular historical examples here, we've got Onecest, the ship between the Onceler from the Lorax and himself, or many alternate versions of himself. Onecest, I keep on wanting to say Onecest, like, oh, two onces, put them together, Onecest. Onecest is a curious example of self-cest arising out of necessity. So the TLDR of it is, when the Lorax movie came out, people thought that the Onceler character was attractive, only there was a problem in that even though the Onceler was very shippable for all intents and purposes, there really weren't a whole lot of options for other characters to ship him with. In the past, with this version of himself, you can really only ship him with the Lorax, which people still did, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't very popular. And in the present day, he's an old man. I guess there's the O'Hare Air guy, but I really don't recall seeing any Onceler O'Hare ship content back in the day. In hindsight, I'm very amused that Onceler XOC or Onceler XYN didn't take off as much as this did. People also shipped him with Norma, but again, not as popular as Onecest. A shipper's gotta do what a shipper's gotta do. Create alternate versions of the Onceler to ship him with himself. Onecest really took off because of Tumblr Ask blogs, which are actually getting their own video in due time, stay tuned, but people would send asks to artists' blogs on Tumblr, and the artists would draw scenarios between the Onceler and another version of the Onceler. And that could be used as shipping fodder, shipping content. There were so many variants of the Onceler with their own Ask blogs, enough to fill a whole spreadsheet. The computer lure, the drug lure, the insomnia lure, the cash lure, the fuck lure, the spider lure, the hipster, cat in the hat lure, duct tape Onceler, who really likes duct tape, I guess. There were several different versions of the greed lure, which is the Onceler after he gets greedy and how bad could he possibly beifies himself. Like a vampire greedler, a pimp greedler, or the pimpler. There's also crossover Oncelers, like the Pokemon Trainer Onesie, the Phantom of the Opera Onceler, or Phantomler, the Hunterler, or the Supernatural Onceler, the Jedi Onceler, the Lemon Grab Onceler, the Slendler Man, the Time Lord Onceler for Doctor Who, and the Wonkaler, which is a Willy Wonka Onceler, which is kind of like the same person thinking about it. What's really funny about the Onceler phenomenon is that fans had very little interest in the Lorax movie itself. They only wanted the Onceler. It was very much a self-sustaining, contained ecosystem. Another big example that left its mark on fandom history is Sanscest from Undertale, which is shipping Sans with alternate universe versions of himself. Sanscest mainly stems from the fact that in the game, Sans is the only character who is aware that he is in a game. He's a character that frequently breaks the fourth wall, who knows about different timelines, and so fans were like, you know what if there were different versions of Sans from those different timelines, different universes, Sans AUs? And then, born from all of those AU Sans was the idea of shipping them together, hence Sanscest, which as of now has over 9,000 fics on AO3. Regular Sans as we know them became Classic Sans, and then you have all of the variants. We've actually seen a very similar scenario arise through Billcest. Billcest is shipping variants of Bill Cipher with himself, those variants being different fan-made AU versions of him. This came about when Gravity Falls fan artists decided to ship their various interpretations of Bill together, just because. And with all the alternate timelines and Gravity Falls, who's to say this didn't happen at some point? Going a bit into my first-hand fandom experience here, we've got Hetalia selfcest. With Hetalia, we've got plenty of alternate versions of the same characters, with the 2P designs and historical designs, card suite designs, Halloween designs. 2P refers to player 1 and player 2, and it was kind of like a switched color palette, but then fans interpreted it as like, oh, very alternate versions of the characters. Tumblr Ask blogs were also a big proponent for these selfcest ships as well. Like, I remember 1P England and 2P England were shipped together, regular England and Pirate England, regular England and Devil England, a lot of England selfcest, as you can see. Adding on to more cursed fandoms, we've got Homestuck with Dave Strider being shipped with Dave Strider. Also entirely a fandom invention, and this is because there is timey-wimey bullshit that happens in the webcomic, and so Dave being his own gay awakening, yeah, it's in character. Speaking of timey-wimey bullshit, we've got the Doctor from Doctor Who. This one makes a lot of sense in my head. You've got several different iterations of the same character, the Doctor, and there's a lot of time stuff that happens in that show already, and the Doctor canonically meets himself at various points of the story, so the fics write themselves at that point. For more live-action stuff, we've got Sandersides, the series created by Thomas Sanders, the YouTuber, in which he portrays several different characters, each of which are different aspects of his personality with different names and quirks. There's Patton, Logan, Roman, Virgil, Janice, Ramus, and of course, at the end of the day, those personas who are different parts of the same person are shipped together. On the topic, Thomas commented, sometimes you get shipped with other people, sometimes you get shipped with yourself. That's true self-love. And because each persona has their own distinct name, the ship names also are distinct instead of just Sandersidecest. Heading back into anime territory, we've got My Hero Academia selfcest, which is mainly focused on Deku, Izuku and himself, and Bakugo and himself. This often manifests in fan works through dimension or time traveling quirks. From there, we can get things like Deku x Villain Deku. For Trigun, we've got the different iterations of both Vash and Wolfwood being shipped amongst each other. From Trigun 98 to Trigun Maximum to Trigun Badlands Rumble to Trigun Stampede. The large appeal here comes from the fact that each Vash and Wolfwood respectively has their own distinct flavor from one another, despite being the same character, which makes it fun to imagine them interacting, trying to figure things out, amongst other things. For Genshin, we have Scaramouche x the Wanderer, two sort of separate identities for the same person. This one is pretty big too, and there was a bit of a hullabaloo surrounding it when it first came out, but it's Loki x Loki from Marvel or the Loki TV series. Regarding Loki and his different variants, but more specifically Loki X Sylvie, his female counterpart. The fandom's reaction to that kiss in season 1, oh boy. Oh, I remember it well. My reaction to it when it came out was basically like, oh wow, that's weird, I'm surprised they went in that direction, but okay, let's see what the fandom thinks. Oh no. Very polarizing, and still is, honestly. I think I've seen more positive reactions to Loki X President Loki versus Loki X Sylvie. Yikes. The fact that it was canon too was like shocking, because wow, we actually get canon selfcest for once, not just fandom shenanigans. I would be very remiss if I did not mention this iconic image, which came out shortly after the season 1 finale of the Loki series, and as you can see, it references several classic examples of selfcest in fandom. Funnily enough, all of these characters can be classified as Tumblr sexy men. Gee, I wonder if there's a connection, if being able to be shipped with yourself is a classification for becoming a Tumblr sexy man. For more canon selfcest, there's Elden Ring, with Queen Marika marrying her male counterpart Radagon. She then went on to give birth to their literally cursed children. Oh, classic J.R.R. Martin move. One instance of selfcest I remember causing discourse on TikTok in particular is the Winter King X Simon from the Adventure Time spin-off Fiona and Cake. While it's not canon, the Winter King did flirt with Simon briefly, so
kiss each other!
Don't think it hasn't occurred to me.
I mean, hey, I'd take it as a win. The Winter King is an alternate universe version of Simon, who used to be the Ice King in the Adventure Time universe. Only unlike the Ice King, who was driven mad by the powers of the crown, the Winter King was able to harness the crown's ice powers while passing on the madness it inflicted to his universe's Princess Bubblegum. A little confusing, but that's the gist of it. Not gonna lie, it was pretty funny seeing people trying to grapple with the fact that the Winter King and Simon ship was taking off and becoming popular. Like, a lot of folks, rather than just saying that the ship weirded them out and they didn't like it, they were like, it's bad to ship the Winter King and Simon because they're the same character, and that's bad. And whenever they were confronted with like, okay, so why is it bad exactly? They were like, I think it's gross and bad, and therefore you should think it's gross and bad. Now, there are a few examples of ships popularly categorized as self-cest ships that I don't think quite meet the criteria, the spirit, the quintessential essence of being doppelbanger ships. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has puzzle shipping and tender shipping, which are cases of two souls, two entities, two consciousnesses inhabiting the same body. In the case of puzzle shipping, it's Yugi Moto x Yami Yugi, aka Atem, aka the Pharaoh. And for tender shipping, it's Bakura x Yami Bakura, aka the Thief King. There's the question of whether or not they're the same spiritually because of the reincarnation aspect, not for their souls because their souls were sealed away in their respective Millennium items, but their bodies were reincarnated, and how the self-shipping would even work in this scenario because of the fact that they do share a body. But because of that degree of separation in the identities of the souls, Yugi and Yami Yugi are not the same person, nor are Bakura and Yami Bakura, and therefore, it's not self-cest. An argument can be made about whether Eclipse shipping, the ship between Merrick and Yami Merrick, classifies as self-cest or not, because Yami Merrick and Merrick share the same soul and body, but Yami Merrick is a separate personality from Merrick, sort of like Sandersides, but literally manifesting rather than just some internal voices debating with each other. The jury's still out on that one, though. With self-cest, a lot of the technicalities and whatnot can get confusing, both from the perspective of the character being shipped and the reader or writer, such as the nature of identity and what exactly it is, how does it take root, how is it perceived, how does it change over time or stay the same? I don't want to get overly philosophical in what's supposed to be a silly video about shipping your favorite character with themselves, so if you've got your own thoughts on it, then feel free to share them in the comments. Why does this exist? Hey, you know, if you love a character, why not double them up and then... Fans think it's funny, it's for the lulz, or they think it's hot. People often forget that shipping doesn't have to be this super serious thing. It can be as simple as, hey, wouldn't it be funny and silly if these two different versions of the same character were a couple? Just because you can. And then there's the fans who like the story potential of a situation where a character falls in love with themselves. Conceptually, it's like seeing someone embrace who they are in the most intimate way possible. Who knows how you operate up here better than yourself, right? All the intimate details, insecurities, wants, fears, dreams. Sometimes all it takes is a character hugging a different version of themselves, saying, You did good. I'm proud of you. I love you, to bring tears to your eyes. It doesn't always have to be a sex thing. Maybe it's a type of relationship that transcends any sort of conventional classification. But in terms of sex things, I mean, who knows how to get you going better than yourself, right? But does self-cest actually count as incest, or sex for that matter? I'll just preface this by saying that this is my own personal take, and you're more than welcome to disagree with me and explain your reasoning in the comments below, because I think it is fun trying to logic and reason your way through an impossible fictional scenario like this, and I'd love to know your thoughts. Again, see the whole would you f your clone debate. I have seen people claim, oh, well, if you ship a character with themselves, they have the same DNA, right? And so hypothetically, it'd be like the same as shipping identical twins together. Right off the bat, this might be a bit of a hot take, I'm not sure, but I'll just throw it out there. Again, you're welcome to disagree with me. Who is thinking about genetic material when you see two of the same character copy-pasted, kissing? How does that cross your mind instead of being like, what the f? There's two of the same person? How is this possible? Why are they here? And they're kissing? I guess if we're talking DNA, it could be classified as mega incest because there's no closer genetic relative to you than you. I mean, even identical twins have tiny, tiny genetic differences. But we're getting ridiculously into splitting hairs here over something that's not even real, and who knows, there could be a universe far, far away from here where DNA isn't even a thing, but somehow self-cest is. So many hypotheticals, I don't... And secondly, isn't that kind of like saying that identical twins are the same person when they're very evidently not? Self-cest is all about, okay, this is the same character twice, or thrice, etc., being shipped with themselves. Like if I'm shipping Gojo from JJK with himself, each version of Gojo has always been Gojo their entire lives. There's only one Gojo in their respective place in time and space. Whereas, say you had a pair of identical twins, like the Hitachi brothers from Ouran High School Host Club, it'd only be self-cest if you were shipping one of the twins with themselves, like if a portal opened up and suddenly there were two Karus. Would still probably be weird from the character's perspective, since they already grew up with someone looking just like them, but conceptually it's still a different beast. I've also seen debates as to whether or not self-cest is problematic, and for starters, if you're writing a story, if you're creating something, and you want there to be a conflict or tension, there needs to be a problem to set that off, right? So in that regard of can self-cest pose as a problem that creates tension and conflict in a fan work? Yeah, absolutely. It can be the big problem that needs to be resolved or tackled at some point during the story. But in terms of, is self-cest a moral quandary we as fans need to worry about? Is it unethical to depict? I mean, again, it's quite literally impossible to be in an intimate physical relationship with a different version of yourself, and it's not really causing any problems in real life, so no. You can certainly believe it's strange, weird, bizarre, freaky, creepy, cringe if it gives you the ick and it's really not your cup of tea. But I'm very tickled by the implication of self-cest somehow starting an epidemic of self-love and narcissism, and was puzzled when the question of its morality came up, because like, again, it's so out there and unreal thanks to the laws of our universe. But what's interesting is that in terms of physical intimacy, I don't see self-cest as quite the same as masturbation, because it's a variant of the same character in a different body with different lived experiences. Yeah, it's really its own beast, isn't it? What's my personal take on self-cest? I just think it's funny. And hey, if I'm in the right mood and the circumstances are interesting, I might be into it. Not gonna turn my nose up at something that could be massively entertaining and weird in the best way possible. I guess the million-dollar question is whether I'd f a clone of myself or not. And you know, I might have to get back to you on that one. Leaning towards no, but I might settle for second base. There's plenty of fan art of me being shipped with various characters I've played on the channel, and well, lovely viewer, I hope you enjoyed that dive into self-cest. What are your thoughts on it? In theory, when you see it in fan works? Do you think self-cest is simply self-love, or is it deeper, more visceral? Do you love it, hate it, think it's weird, think it's funny? Go ahead and leave your thoughts in the comments, and if you'd like to see more fandom and fan culture-esque videos from yours truly, then feel free to subscribe. And if you want to check out my fanfiction recommendation list with over 1,000 fanfics on there, as well as watch exclusive videos not on the channel, then head on over to my Patreon or YouTube membership. Thank you all so much for watching, everybody, and I will see you in my next video. Bye! 안녕!